Podcast 1.
Go ahead, Podcast 1. This is approach control.
Tower, this is Free Range Texan Airways. We've turned on final approach and are beginning our descent.
Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned on the fasten your seatbelt sign and has informed me that we will be landing on schedule for our bi-weekly Free Range Texan podcast. Please remain seated until Podcast 1 rolls to a complete stop. On behalf of our captain and crew, we thank you for flying Free Range Texan Airways.
7.
Start the clock.
6.
Stand by, Eddie Bay 1.
5.
Stand by, Sweetie Pie.
4.
Bring studio mics hot.
3.
Stand by, Michael Shawn.
2.
Roll music.
1.
Well, howdy, y'all. The Free Range Texan podcast is underway. This here program is a special look at the way life is shaping up for folks in the U.S. of A., seen through the eyes of a born and bred West Texan. Our host is a veteran broadcaster who is known for his campfire visits on radio. Michael Shawn is standing by.
Sit, Wonder Dog, sit!
So here he is, our host, a real free-range Texan himself, Michael Shawn.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. Episode 14. Who would have thought we held our jobs that long? The Studio A crew is putting another one together here, and we are glad that you've joined us. And that's right, I have Foxy the Wonder Dog with me. People who know me behind the scenes know that Foxy the Wonder Dog is kind of my constant companion, but I got special permission from 18PR to allow Foxy the Wonder Dog to be on set for our Free Range Texan podcast. And boy, is that a swell deal. Good dog, Foxy. Well, of course I got permission. They're holding up a sign. Did you really get permission? Yes, I got permission. I got a campfire, for crying out loud. If you get a campfire, you can have a dog. Well, everybody, if you're just tuning in to this Free Range Texan podcast for the very first time, let me tell you, we have lots of good subjects on this podcast and podcasts prior. If you get a chance to go back and listen to some of our earlier podcasts, you will find that we have opened a number of can of worms on this show, and we'll probably continue to do so and follow up on all that stuff. Got a great show lined up for today. Tim McKenzie is going to be on the show. Folks in West Texas know Tim McKenzie. Folks in Colorado know Tim McKenzie. He is a singer, songwriter, and he's going to be doing one of his tunes that he wrote, a true story about let's say an odd happening in Palo, Duro Canyon. Honestly, I thought about making an unexplained file out of Tim McKenzie's song because it's a true story, but he'll tell us about that on the show coming up today. Also, I have a momentary word of wisdom. I know what a lot of you are thinking. You would really like for me to go ahead and spill the beans on that right now, but it's coming up a few minutes from now. Michael Shawn's Campfire at the end of the show, and we've invited Tom Selleck to be on the show. You guys called, right? You guys call Selleck? Okay, stay by the phone over there. What a show we got. Oh, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the folks that are sending in their pictures to be a part of our Free Range Texan posse. And I mean, these pictures are coming in worldwide, and we'd love to put you up on the blog and have a big time with you on the Free Range Texan Facebook page. You can get over there and give us a thumbs up if you like. But if you haven't gotten your snapshot in on the Free Range Texan podcast specially designed blog, then you should do that at info@freerangetexan.net. You can go there and see all of that at freerangetexan.net. I forgot to mention on the last show, when we talked about the chupacabra with Joe Taylor, that we were putting pictures up on the freerangetexan.net blog. I have been asked to mention to you that if you have young folks going to that website, you might want to use a little bit of a cautionary deal, because those pictures are doggone scary. It's a real-life chupacabra that was in the possession of Joe Taylor for at least a year. And we've got pictures of that up on our blog, and you should go there and see that, but watch it if the kiddos are looking over your shoulder. On to the little old lady who sent her snapshot in to our Free Range Texan group of posse listeners that send those pictures in. We would like to ask you if you would, sweetheart, put your robe on and send us another. Episode 14 brought to you by the folks at A-Team PR. If you're looking for advertising, public relations, strategic media planning, or custom production, it's all there waiting for you. You can check them out on our website at freerangetexan.net. There's a button there that'll take you right over to the A-Team PR, folks. Well, we got all this and a whole lot more coming up. So let's saddle up and get ready to ride on the Free Range Texan Podcast. Well, once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for Michael Shawn's momentary word to the wise. It was some time ago when a cowboy told his grandson the secret to a long life. He said, "You gotta sprinkle a little bit of gunpowder on your oatmeal every day. See, if you do, you'll live to be a nice, ripe old age." The grandson did this every day and lived to a nice, ripe old age of 96. When he died, he left behind 4 children, 8 grandchildren, 15 great-grandchildren, and a 16-foot hole in the wall of the crematorium.
Have digital microphone will travel.
Senor, what are you doing?
Aiming high over the wall.
You're listening to the Free Range Texan Podcast.
It's time now for another segment of Free Range Talent, brought to you by A-Team PR, bringing a host of creative media production and public relations services to our exclusive list of clients. Maybe you could hire the A-Team. And now, here's the next segment of Free Range Talent. I have gone so many times, so many places, and seen on stage and thought, man, that guy is a lot of fun. And Tim McKenzie is our guest.
Good day, good day. Glad to be here.
I ran into you at a place called the 4-Bar K. The thing about the 4-Bar K is you see some really neat people and some neat talent come through over there. And you handed me your latest CD, and I went straight back to the studio and listened to it. And there is some dyna-whopping good stuff.
Boy, Yeah, it's probably as accurate as I could say it. And I don't know if it was inspiration or a curse or something. I don't know. But first of all, I did encourage you to use that CD as a coaster before you did anything else with it, because it might clean it up a little bit. Most of those songs span, a pretty long time, 25 years, I guess. And there's a story, everybody's got a story with their songs, but all of those have a story behind them, where they came from, and that's why they're on the disc.
Well, Tim, how long have you been standing up on a stage with your guitar and entertaining people around the southwestern United States?
My dad was a preacher at a little church in Broomfield, Colorado, and I was actually born in Denver. And we lived in that little town that sits right between Boulder and the Denver metropolitan area. And I saw Elvis, on the tube and in his movies. Of course, my dad wouldn't let me watch. We couldn't go see his movies, but I saw a couple of his movies on TV. And I came home one night, after church on Sunday evening, and saw the Ed Sullivan show, and here was this guy, and they were...
Are you telling me that you are inspired by Elvis Presley?
Elvis was not really considered to be a great guitar player, but part of what made that sound that he had was this rhythm action he had with his wrist. Most people don't recognize him as a great guitar player, but he was a great rhythm guitar player, and he had this ability in his playing to float the strings that allows the timing when you hit those strings, you get that click of the pick. And Buddy Holly had this, but Elvis took more on an acoustic because he played it acoustic, and when he played with Bill Black and had that backbeat of that bass thumping with that acoustic guitar, that's where the sound of That's All Right Mama came from. I want to do that. I want to make that sound. I want to learn to play that way. And my dad said, "Well, if you still want a guitar in another year, we'll get you one." So I waited a year, and I chomped at the bit to play for a whole year. And my dad brings home this funky, clunky old piece of wood that was not much more than a piece of firewood, but I just loved it. And I was about 6 years old. I'd just gone into first grade, I guess. I got in trouble at school once, and which was to set a pattern in the second grade, and I was spending time down in the principal's office, and that may be another story. I'd taken my brother's Cub Scout knife to school, and that was a no-no. And so, anyways, I was sitting down in the office, and they called my mom, and here she came in that 1951 Studebaker, and they got in the where they'd seen that old funky, clunky car coming into the parking lot one more time because Tim's in the office, and so, anyways, she mentioned to my teacher in one of those conferences that, it appears to me that we have just not discovered his abilities yet. And she said, well, he's been taking guitar lessons, and he knows a few songs. And Mrs. Shepherd decided to put me in the school play, and I only knew one song, really, and that was Sweet Betsy from Pike. I played it twice, played it once for the school assembly, and then that nighttime for the parents. After that song ended, there was about a couple of seconds of dead silence, and then, the school erupted. It was like, they were just, and I thought, what? And it scared me. The applause and the stuff scared me, but it didn't take more than a couple of seconds to get hooked on that sound. And
Tim, would it be fair to say that you are a cowboy?
When I first started this stuff and I got into cowboy music, I thought I was, the longer I played Western music and swing and started doing cowboy symposiums and meeting real cowboys, I mean, guys that make their living doing it.
Right.
I found out there weren't just a lot of real true musicians among those guys, because they're real cowboys. And so it took cowboy musicians, to tell their story. And I got a job at a chuck wagon supper ranch after my college years and worked with a guy up in Colorado in Estes Park. We also ran a few cows and some horses, and he invited me to come up and work with him, and I thought it was going to be on the horses and riding the range, and all really needed me to do was dig post holes.
Sure.
But I was on a horse enough and in the cold and up at those high elevations to just wonder why anybody would really want to work that hard.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like the rest of us that sing music about cowboys, and I've done enough of it and rode horses enough and done enough of the cowboy work that being a real cowboy is probably better off for a single fellow, first of all, because the life expectancy of those guys is probably not real long, and with the kind of work that they do. And it is very hard. And I guess the main thing that I discovered more than anything else, and that was very early on, was that being a cowboy is not a profession. It's a lifestyle. While I was in my college years, I traveled there may have been one state or two that I have not been in, but I can't remember what they would be at this point. I've been in every state in this country probably twice, maybe 3 times. And I will tell you without a shadow of a doubt that it doesn't get any better than right here in West Texas. I can promise you that. The economy, the people. I'll tell you what, I got here as soon as I could.
I'm reading off of your CD. There's a song called The Ghost of Palo Canyon. It says, it's a true story. The event happened while I was driving in the Amarillo area and decided to take a scenic route through Palo Canyon. That's you that wrote that, right?
Yeah.
Not just the song, but you wrote this piece. That was you that took the scenic route through, and the experience that the song talks about, that was your experience.
It was. That's a true story. Drive west or drive east out of Amarillo, and I came out to it was like 207, which is a road that goes down through the canyon where it gets really, really wide. I'd heard before, especially the farther up you go in the canyon, if they start raining, that's one thing, you get that kind of rain out on the prairie, but when you get it in a canyon, it's like pouring water into a funnel.
You bet.
A canyon is one of the most dangerous places to be in a thunderstorm in West Texas in rainy season, So this old boy, walking across the road, and he just kind of was in front of me, and he stopped me and just said, man, you don't want to go down there. There's a storm rolling in, and that road's not going to survive it. Anyways, turned around and went back to Amarillo to come home, but I'd heard on the radio that the flood in Palo Canyon taking the bridge out down there. So. And
you wrote this song, The Ghost of Palo Canyon, inspired by that event.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I really believe if I'd have gone down in that canyon, I wouldn't be here. It was on the news, a little later, they just showed some flash clips of the damage done in that canyon, but I would not have been able to get through that canyon if I'd come on home that way. So,
Tim McKenzie, it is a pleasure to have you on the Free Range Texan podcast. We would like very much to share a song called The Ghost of Palo Canyon on the Free Range Texan podcast.
Most excellent. Thank you.
On a road leaving Amarillo, just before the sun went down, in a canyon called Palo, I was driving homeward bound. I stopped at the rim of the canyon to take in this beautiful sight. With the storm rolling in, I returned once again to the road, driving into the night. see the bright lightning flashing as I started to make the descent, when I saw an old cowboy crossing the road, leading his horse as he went. He motioned to stop, so I slowed down. Then he pointed down the road up ahead, and in a voice as of yet I cannot forget, he looked at me sternly and said, "Oh, there's nothing this side of the Brazos that chills a man clean to his soul, like being caught in the canyon when the river is out of control. She's a wild and a wicked scorned woman when a mighty rain's headed this way. So don't cross the white Palo. There's no sense in dying today." Well, I just said thanks for the warning and started turning around. Looked back to wave adios, but he was nowhere to be found. I drove for a while feeling troubled, then I turned up the car radio. They said the road was now gone that I might have been on. It'd been washed out in Palo. Then they went on telling the story of a cowhand who once tried to drive a herd in the rain through the canyon and never did come out alive. Well, they never did find that old cowboy, and it is said to this day that he rides the rim of the canyon, and when you see him he's likely to say, "Oh, there's nothing this side of the Brazos that chills a man clean to his soul, like being caught in the canyon when the river is out of control. She's a wild and a wicked scorned woman when a mighty rain's headed this way. So don't cross the white Palo. There's no sense in dying today. So don't cross the white Palo. There's no sense in dying today."
You've been listening to the Free Range Talent File. If you'd like more information about our guests, just go to our website at freerangetexan.net. Also, submissions to be interviewed on our program can also be submitted on freerangetexan.net. Everybody might as well stay in the saddle, because coming up next we have Michael Shawn's Campfire. Good story on this episode. Before we do that, let me remind you that if you go to freerangetexan.net, there is a plethora of stuff that you could see and hear about, particularly if you go to the blog. A lot of behind-the-scenes pictures on the show, and put more stuff up every week. But the thing I want to mention to you right now about is the Free Range Texan House of Treasures. Now, you may not be aware of this. If you've never been to the Free Range Texan House of Treasures, it's just another little perk of being on the freerangetexan.net website. You know how a lot of times you have folks coming over to see you, or going to come stay with you for a special birthday, and you just need a special gift, something they would never think to get for themselves, something unique, and maybe something that says Texas? Well, if that's the case, the Free Range Texan House of Treasures is there for you. From turquoise jewelry to scented candles, it's all about the state of Texas, and a few other various and sundry items that I know will put a grin on your face, as well as a complete line of Texas cookbooks. And when you hear the guests on our show, and they've got special products or music, or they've written a book, that'll all be there at the Free Range Texan House of Treasures. Now, when you buy from the Free Range Texan House of Treasures, you help support our podcast, and we appreciate that very much. I guess we'll do what we like to do right about this time on every podcast. You and I, let's take a walk over to the campfire. Hi, this is Michael Shawn. Welcome to the Campfire. Here's a story inspired by L.L. Rigsby. He squatted down on the rim of a vast canyon. New Mexico Territory was a big country. Somewhere he had lost the trail. He'd get cold in the mountains tonight, but he dared not build a fire. 3 times he had seen something out of the corner of his eye. Once he thought it might be a wolf, but wolves didn't stalk men, especially a man with a rifle. He reasoned if he continued east and didn't run into an Apache hunting party, eventually he'd see something he recognized. To his right, a limb snapped. He swung his rifle around and put his back to a tree. A shadow moved. Or was it his imagination? He took 2 steps and squatted, aiming the rifle, but there was nothing to shoot. An eerie feeling crawled up his back, raising the hair on the back of his neck. Ghosts? Ghosts had never been a part of his thoughts before, and ghosts didn't snap twigs. If it were an Apache, he'd be sprouting arrows by now. He finally found a place below an overhang that was screened by trees. A man would have to be mighty close to see a fire. A fire would scare off wild animals. Maybe it was a black bear. The idea sent another cold chill up his spine. It would be a cold and restless night, but he'd known worse. The next morning he began to climb. Reaching the top of the mountain, he paused to rest. The sacred springs of Ojo Caliente lay somewhere to the northeast. It was a place frequented by the Apache and their leader, Victorio. He had traded with the Apache chief. Victorio had been tolerant of white men up until this point. While walking, he nearly missed the track. A large cat, a puma. A puma would be crafty on the hunt. Anything that moved would interest the cat. He climbed higher until he reached the spring. There, he waited, watching for a while before he finally lowered his gun and scooped some of the water in his hands. He reached down for more water and then froze in motion. Reflected in the water was a cat standing on a bluff, a white mountain lion. He stood up and turned around. The cat had disappeared. Had it been an illusion? Gato Blanca. A voice spoke behind him. He whirled and faced a mounted Apache. He saw the cat. You saw the cat? Many times I see ghost cat. He follow white man, protect people of Warm Springs. Victorio glanced down at him. I see you before, many moons ago. You still have knife with deer horn? Never without it, he said. Good trade. It had been a short conversation, but the message was clear. Don't kill the cat. He reached the mining camp that night. He told no one because surely there would be a white man's hunting party and someone would get hurt. he felt a strange bond with Victorio. It was not long after that the Apache chief declared war and rode a bloody trail in the area. Yet the white cat was never mentioned. I'm Michael Shawn, and you're at the Campfire. Adios, my friends. Well, special thanks to our friend Tim McKenzie for being on the show. That is one gentleman we're going to have back. And a big shout out and thanks to our friends at A-Team PR in their fabulous, now becoming famous Studio A. A-Team PR, where the PR stands for Public Relations. Custom production, thinking about producing a podcast yourself, or you just need some good strategic media planning. A-Team PR. Find out more on the FreeRangeTexan.net website, where maybe you could hire the A-Team. So, you guys back there, do me a favor, will you? If Sweetie Pie's not on the phone with Tom Selleck, tell her to come on in and take us home.
Thank y'all for listening to the Free Range Texan podcast, produced at A-Team PR Studios out yonder in West Texas, with our host who's been voted the hardest working man in podcasting, Michael Shawn. Feedback or submissions to our program can be submitted on our website, freerangetexan.net. That's freerangetexan.net. This is Sweetie Pie on behalf of Michael Shawn and the crew here in Studio A, where we're all looking forward to spending time with you on our next bi-weekly episode of the Free Range Texan podcast. Y'all come back now, you hear?